Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. All right, let's get to a couple other big games here on the Week 4 slate. We're bouncing around. We started in the SEC, went to the Big Ten. We're back to the SEC. Really intriguing game, 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 local time in Auburn on the Plains. Auburn hosting Arkansas. The Auburn Tigers, a 3.5-point home favorite. The over-under set at 56.5. I'll tell you this. First off, that 56.5, that number is creeping down throughout the week. Also, the 3.5 is kind of interesting because basically when Vegas makes a home team a 3-point favorite, that usually means that they believe they're about even teams. You get a little bit of an advantage for home field. So basically Vegas is throwing its arms up and is like, we don't even really know what to do with this one, but it is going to be intriguing and obviously a monumental game for both teams. Each took a loss early. Each obviously trying to move up the pecking order in this deep 16-team SEC. So let's go ahead and dive into the SEC opener for both. For Auburn, listen, we know what the deal has been the last couple weeks. They are just trying to figure out this quarterback situation. Start the year with Peyton Thorne. He wasn't great last year. Weird season where he almost beat Alabama, but he was terrible in the bowl game. Everybody wanted Hugh Freeze to go in the portal and get a quarterback. He decides against it. Thorne starts the season, and unfortunately, in the first real test of the year for Auburn, hate to say it, but it's the truth, Thorne was a complete disaster. 4 interceptions. Auburn loses to Cal. Hugh Freeze says after the game, listen, we've thought about making the change. We're not sure if we should make the change. Peyton Thorne's been the better practice player, but he does make that decision a week ago, goes with Hank Brown, and we got to give credit where it's due. Hank Brown was really good in his start last week against New Mexico. Now, admittedly, it was New Mexico. I get it. But at the same time, kind of looked exactly like what you would hope for. 17 of 26 passing, 235 yards, 4 touchdown passes. And listen, Hugh Freeze, to his credit, is a great offensive mind. That's what you're supposed to do with a young quarterback. Make things easy, find easy throws for him, get him to, complete passes within the offense. That's exactly what he did. 4 touchdowns. You got to feel good. Also got to feel good, by the way, the fact that, yes, it's only New Mexico, but that run game was cooking for Auburn. Well over 200 yards rushing. Jarquez Hunter with 152 yards rushing. And that's kind of what you got to do with a young quarterback making his first start. You want to go ahead, again, get the run game going, take pressure off the quarterback. So good first start for Hank Brown in this Auburn offense. But of course, because it's Auburn, nothing comes easy. And how about this? How about the fact that in this game against New Mexico, this was supposed to be just an easy win, get your new QB ready to go. What ends up happening? Oh, the defense completely falls apart. That's all. Now, listen, completely falls apart, maybe a little bit overrated, but this was a game that was 17-13 at halftime, Auburn leading. Auburn ends up giving up 448 yards of total offense, 6 yards per carry to New Mexico. And Hugh Freeze basically acknowledged after the game, like, we were a little bit lost out there. The exact quote, by the way, I found it before we started recording here. He said, quote, "We seemed chaotic on defense." Never what you want to hear. Second half was better. But again, poor Auburn fans and producer Matt is one. Can't just have a simple day in the park. There's always something. It's always complicated. And you look at this Auburn situation, and that's kind of what you have going into this one. From the Arkansas perspective, it's kind of crazy, honestly, how much the Arkansas season to date mirrors the Auburn season, right? Arkansas dominates in week 1 against an FCS HBCU opponent, Arkansas Pine Bluff in their case, obviously Alabama A&M for Auburn. Arkansas loses a game in week 2 that bluntly they should have won. Now, I don't know that Auburn should have won theirs, but a game that Auburn could have won, a game that Arkansas could have and should have won. And then last week, you get the win over UAB, but I don't think anybody felt great about it, right? It's a game where, listen, I was as big of an advocate early in the season for Talon Green. I jokingly during the Pine Bluff game said, let's start talking Heisman. And yes, I was being sarcastic in that manner. But this was a kid When he was at Boise last year, he is, of course, the transfer quarterback. I think if you're listening to this kind of podcast, you probably already know. But when you look at Taylon Green, he was at Boise really about a 57, 56, 58% completion percentage guy. You'd hope that playing under Bobby Petrino, things would get better. They did early, probably the first game and a half. He just looked much more consistent, much more confident. But things have kind of unfortunately regressed over the last couple weeks. 11 of 26 passing against UAB. Listen, I'm not going to lie and say I watched the game play for play, breaking down film like I'm a coach, but a couple easy throws he missed into the end zone. And listen, this is the gift and the curse. You're going to have to deal with it. But he was not great. Good news for Arkansas is that much like Auburn, the run game is cooking, and the run game is cooking with Jaquindon Jackson. Okay, this kid is phenomenal. He is, of course, as everybody knows, the transfer from Utah. Utah never has a problem running the football, and Arkansas does not have a problem running the football with this kid. He's got just under 400 yards rushing in 3 games, 6 touchdowns, 3 straight 100-yard rushing games. And so to me, obviously, especially going on the road, especially going into a tough environment that, as we've discussed many times, love Auburn, hate Auburn, make fun of them, don't like Hugh Freeze, whatever. It is one of the toughest environments in college football. Could have, maybe should have beaten Alabama last year. Kirby Smart this past offseason said it's one of the toughest places that Georgia has to play. So the bottom line is you'd think that Arkansas is going to rely on the run game. And so when I look at this game, listen, I'll be honest, that's exactly where I kind of stand on these two teams going into this game. In my opinion, they largely mirror each other. Young, or at the very least in the case of Arkansas, within the system, inexperienced quarterback. Auburn's is a little bit younger. That I don't believe either team wants to put too much on each quarterback's shoulders. Veteran running back. I know Arkansas's, again, is new to the program. We get it. But Arkansas wants to run the football. We know Sam Pittman's a former O-line coach. We get all that. And I think Auburn's kind of the same. Hugh Freeze is going to do it out of a little bit of a different formation, a different look, a different whatever. But I think if Hugh Freeze has his way, he wants to run the football and establish the line of scrimmage. What will be interesting, I think both teams want to run the football. Worth noting that Auburn has the second slowest tempo, I believe, in all of the SEC. Like, they're not running up to the line of scrimmage like Ole Miss and trying to get off a play with, 24 seconds left on the clock or whatever. What I also think will be interesting just about this game is that while Auburn, I did say struggled to stop the run last week, you have two teams that want to run the football. You also have two teams, it's worth noting, are pretty good at run defense. So Arkansas, to its credit, has the third best rushing defense in the SEC. What's worth noting, Ole Miss is number 1 in the country. Tennessee is number 4 in the country. Arkansas, a top 10 run defense in college football. Auburn, I know I just said they struggle with New Mexico, but overall, they're about a top 30 or so run defense. So I just don't think there's going to be a lot of points on the board in this game. Matter of fact, if you're asking me to make a pick, make a betting selection, I think the under is the smart play. As I said, both teams, as I said, the number has been coming down all week long. Started at 58.5. It's down to 56.5. And I think Vegas kind of expects a game similar to what I do. Neither team putting too much on the quarterback. Both teams want to run the football. Both teams want to chew up the clock. And rather than betting aside, I think the smarter play is just to take the under. Take the under, 2 good run defenses, clock gets chewed. This feels like 24-21 written all over it. This just does not seem like a game where either team is going to explode, either offense is going to explode. And if anything, I kind of project it to be a pretty close, low-scoring game. Like I said, feels 24-21 either way. The under is my pick. If I did have to make a singular selection, would probably take Arkansas outright. Great run game. That run defense has been consistent. And you do have Taylon Green, who is a little bit more of an experienced quarterback at the college level. Don't feel great about it. Won't be betting it. Again, I think the under is the way to go.